Italy holds more gold than China, more gold than Russia, a significant margin, more gold than every country on Earth, except two. And until December 2025, Italy didn't legally own a single bar of it. That $376 billion is sitting in vaults in New York, London, and Berne. And a European institution just told Italy it has no right to call it its own. Italy passed a law to fix that, and the ECB called it dangerous. By the end of this video, you'll understand why that reaction tells you everything about who actually controls European money. Okay, so why does a legal dispute between Rome and Frankfurt matter to you, whether you're in Mumbai, in Chicago, or anywhere outside Europe? Because this isn't about Italy's gold. It's about whether governments can still control their own financial architecture, or whether that control quietly moved somewhere else a long time ago. India already answered this question for itself. In 2024, the Reserve Bank of India repatriated 202 tons of gold from the Bank of England. Not because India needed the gold, because India decided it needed to own what it owns. This is Voice on Pages. Let's follow the gold. Here's how we're going to break this down. Part 1. The architecture. How the ECB gold arrangement was built, and why it was never supposed to be questioned. Part 2. The exit ramp. Why Italy's €3.1 trillion debt crisis makes gold the only card left on the table. Part 3. The domino list. Which countries are already moving, and what France just did in April 2026 that nobody's talking about yet. The architecture. Think of it like this. Imagine you inherited your grandfather's house. The deed is in your name, but the building is managed by a committee, and the committee's rules say you cannot sell, cannot refinance, cannot do anything with the property without their approval. You own it on paper, they control it in practice. That is exactly the arrangement Italy signed when it joined the Eurozone in 1999. National central banks transferred a portion of their reserves to the ECB. Italy handed over 141 tons. The remaining 2,452 tons stayed on the Banca d'Italia's balance sheet. But under Maastricht Treaty rules, the Bank of Italy cannot use that gold to finance the Italian government. It cannot be deployed. It cannot be monetized. It exists, and it is effectively frozen. And get this. Germany repatriated 674 tons of physical gold between 2013 and 2017, moved it from New York and Paris back to Frankfurt. The ECB said nothing, not a single legal opinion, not one letter of concern. Because Germany moved gold physically. Italy didn't move a single bar. Italy passed a law saying they own it, and the ECB sent 2 separate legal opinions and summoned Italy's economy minister to Brussels. The gold didn't move. The threat was the word ownership. Just let that sink in. The exit ramp. Italy's national debt is €3.1 trillion. Debt to GDP, 137.9%. For context, the EU's own fiscal rules say that number should be below 60%. Italy is running at more than double the limit. Okay, so here's what that means in practice. Italy is the tenant who can't leave the building. The rent is too high, the contract is too long, and the only valuable thing they own is in a vault they can't open. $376 billion in gold covers roughly 11% of Italy's total debt at current prices. That's not a solution, but it is collateral. It is optionality. It is the difference between a country that has something to negotiate with and a country that has nothing. Meloni's government didn't pass this law to sell the gold. Senator Lucio Milan was explicit. We have no intention of selling or utilizing the gold in any other way. This is a matter of principle. The principle is this. If you are going to carry €3.1 trillion in debt for the next 30 years, you want the $376 billion in your name, not in an institutional gray zone. Christine Lagarde made the stakes clear herself in December 2025. Her words in the European Parliament. It's not a trivial issue because Italy, as you know, is the 3rd largest holder of gold amongst the family of central banks. So it's a key component of the reserves of Italy. The law isn't about the gold. It's about who gets to make decisions when the next crisis arrives. The domino list. And here's the thing. Italy was not the first, and it will not be the last. Hungary has grown its gold reserves from 3 tons to 110 tons since 2018. Every ton repatriated from London back to Budapest. Poland now holds 530 tons of gold. And get this, that is more than the ECB itself. One EU member state, not a G7 country, not a Eurozone heavyweight, holding more gold than the institution that governs Eurozone monetary policy. Just let that sink in. And France, in April 2026, this month, moved 129 tons of gold from the United States. Not announced with fanfare, not debated in Parliament, just moved. But here's the part that makes this genuinely fascinating. Every single one of these moves pushes gold higher. Goldman Sachs is forecasting $4,900 per ounce by the end of 2026. Central banks bought over 1,000 tons in 2024 alone. Gold is now the world's second largest reserve asset, ahead of the euro. And believe me, that ranking matters. Because every country that moves gold home, every law that asserts ownership, every ton pulled from a foreign vault, it tightens supply. It signals demand. It reprices the asset that the post-Russia sanctions world decided is the only truly neutral store of value. Which means India, sitting on 854 tons, 60% now held domestically, wins every time a European country decides its gold belongs at home. The 202 tons the RBI brought back in 2024 are worth significantly more today than the day they landed. Italy started an argument about ownership. What it may have accidentally started is a repricing of the entire global reserve system. So what does this mean if you're watching from India? The RBI repatriated 202 tons of gold in 2024. 2 tranches, May and October. Quietly, methodically, without a constitutional crisis. India didn't need a law because India's central bank and the Indian state were already aligned. Italy needed a law because they weren't. That gap between a government and its central bank is the real story here. And it exists in more places than Europe. If you watched our video on the BRICS pay system, you already understand the architecture Italy is trying to exit. Every ton of gold that moves home is a ton that can't be frozen by SWIFT. It is physical sovereignty in a world where financial sovereignty has a new price. Here is the question nobody can answer yet. If France moved in April, if Poland already holds more than the ECB, if Italy passed a law in December, who is next? And more importantly, what happens to the Eurozone's financial architecture when enough member states decide that institutional loyalty has a price they're no longer willing to pay? Leave that in the comments. I want to know which country you think moves next, because in the end, capital doesn't have loyalty. It has logic. Steve, signing off.